Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican, coming to you on this Sunday, May 11th. RIFC fails to win in their second time in front of the home crowd this season, drawing to Monterey Bay FC 1-1. We're going to talk about what this club needs to get all 3 points and figure out how to get some wins in this hotly contested stretch of 5 games in 14 days. Now heading down to Magic City to take on the Birmingham Legion midweek. Joining me as always, the one and only Jason Carey. Jason, how is it going, my friend?
Doing really good. I'm pretty tired. I think that maybe I discovered that I'm a bike person, and I went on a very long bike ride today, and so that wore me out a bit. Maybe I would have learned this earlier in my life if someone hadn't stolen my bike when I was 11. And I were too poor to buy a new bike. And so I was just like, well, I guess that's the end of my biking. So
that's a deep cut right there. I don't think we were prepared for that emotional journey. So let's just bring in the other host with the most tonight. You know him. He's a good friend of the podcast. He's an even better friend of all things USL. In some ways, I think he is Mr. USL, between his time spent covering the Birmingham Legion with the Hammering Down podcast, and of course, one of the usuals, the face of the face for the USL show on Tuesday nights, Mr. Kaylor Hodges joining us. How are you doing, Kaylor?
I'm good, but I'm a little perturbed that people are listening to this, and some of them haven't even called their mom today for Mother's Day. So, like, what are you doing? Call your mom right now, or right after the show ends, because we got to get the viewership up. Like and subscribe.
Raising Anchor, we as Chip's mascot bandana said yesterday, his little headband, Raising Anchor loves moms because Chip loves moms. And if I have one goal in this life in front of the RIFC faithful, I'm going to get that headband one day, and it will be proudly displayed somewhere on the back wall here, the souvenir wall, so to speak. Did both of you guys check in with your mothers or any mothers inside your sphere of love today? Did you guys all do your check-ins?
Yeah.
I am calling my mom after this because she had work this morning, so could not get in touch with her. But as soon as I'm off of this, I will give her call. I've texted her, so she at least knows that I've thought about her, and I told her that call is coming.
Is there a chance she's watching right now and now knows that you prioritized a USL podcast over her?
There's no world where she is watching this at all.
So we just got to continue working on expanding the audience is what I'm hearing. It's a challenge.
She loves me very much, but she always tells me that this all sounds like gibberish and that she's sure that I'm doing a great job, which is all I need to hear, really.
That is a mother's love, 100%. Well, then let's get into this because we have an action-packed show, and with the three of us here, we don't want to do a 5-hour podcast, especially on Mother's Day, especially when so many beautiful people have so many other beautiful things to do. Jason, let's jump into the most important news of the week. It's a first, and let me say, proud of the Rhode Island faithful for turning up in a big way here, or some people getting some really intricate chat bots and some cheating algorithms going here.
Yeah, so Koke finally earns a Save of the Week nod, ironically beating out Nico Campazano on the same week that we faced them. We were actually talking about this on the last week pod, and I'm not saying we willed this into existence, but maybe we were talking to Chris from the Union Report. We showed the stats so far and mentioned how it didn't look like we were going to win, and then wake up the next day and we nailed it.
You know, I've got some theories on it. One, Nico's already won it once, maybe even twice this season. Everyone knows he's pretty much a lock-in for keeper of the season, which, although there may be a contender here, we'll talk about it with the Birmingham Legion side in a minute. But also, I can't live in a world where that save of the week was a save because I've watched it several times, and I don't think Nico stopped that from crossing the line. I think he just did like what catchers do in baseball, and they kind of framed it back up in the right way. So there's no way that was allowed to beat Koke Vegas. So big nods. I mean, Kaylor, you've covered this league for what it feels like decades now. That's a good sign, right? When we finally get the popularity contest votes under us, that's how we know we've made it as a club.
It used to be a lot easier to win the popularity contest. It used to be just brute force. Now they kind of like split things around and certain votes count more than others and all that jazz. I think honestly nowadays, if you win it, it's more than a popularity contest. I think there is a large part of it that still is, of course. But hey, look, Rhode Island always shows out. Anytime that we drop Rhode Island in to the chat, our viewers always go up for the USL show. It's kind of like putting Shohei Ohtani in the first 15 seconds of your baseball podcast. Like viewership goes up for a minute. And so it's good that they're showing up and showing out. And besides, Koke earned that one. It's such a good save.
Thank you. Finally, someone who knows what they're talking about. Chris last week refused to give the gravitas to the man flying through the air. So love to see that. And now Chris isn't here to defend himself, so it all works out for us on the end.
he
So.
had to
We'll say it behind his back, like real people.
100% behind his back, but in the digital ecosystem. So, all right, let's get into this recap of this game because I really want to unpack and start the preview here as soon as possible. So let's get into this recap. First off, everyone knows it. Rhode Island FC feels like maybe they're the draw kings returning to form here, getting that tie against Monterey Bay in their draw 1-1 in their second regular season home game at Centerville Bank Stadium. Still in front of 77,000 plus fans. We were scared about the turnout. It's a busy weekend, both with Mother's Day. The Celtics are still desperately in a playoff bid for their sport. So like New England, especially around any kind of postseason magic, like I was really impressed that Rhode Island still showed up in a big way. But this is only game 3 of 5 in 14 days. We talked with Coach Cano at length in the post-game press conference, and all he could say was that his team is tired. Very, very tired. So I got to ask, Jason, Kayla, we'll start with you, Jason. If you're Coach Cano, you've got this tired squad, this injury-depleted squad. You've spun 2 draws in front of a home crowd. No losses yet at Centerville Bank Stadium, at least in the regular season. But you got 2 more games this week, now both away. How do you keep spirits high in this locker room, and how do you keep fans dialed into this club?
Cano loves to say, one game at a time. I think that when they look at that second half performance, they can be really proud of what they did. It just, kind of feels like there wasn't a lot going on there in the first half. I understand they were tired. Maybe they kind of needed that second wind there, if you will. The joke was, did they think the game started at 4:30? Because, the previous weekend it did, because it really didn't feel like they were playing too much that first 30 minutes. Maybe trying to conserve their energy, keep it tight. Didn't work out that way.
But unusual for this Rhode Island squad who likes to go out and score early, or at least get a goal back if they can, and try to dictate terms in the first half. I'm a little confused, Kayla. You've seen this team. You've seen how Coach Cano operates in his time in Birmingham. Is that what you do when a team is dogged like that?
I think when a team is exhausted, I think that there are different kinds of fatigue that set in. When you're in what I understand, talking to Cano, talking to other coaches who do these things, talking to Topical, but a couple years ago, Mark Briggs, is like when you do the Open Cup thing and you're fatigued from the U.S. Open Cup, especially a game at home against MLS team, even though you lost, like the mental vibe has been picked up. So you can overcome the legs because the brain is willing to go. I think that they were always going to be tired anyway. I mean, look at the away stretch they did, right? They didn't get to come home. They were going to be exhausted no matter what. I think that opening up the stadium, they're going to be picked up already just a little bit. They get the MLS match at home. If you mentioned the circumstances on why the attendance should have sucked and it didn't. It was a great attendance. I think those are things that are mental pickups that can allow the players to overcome kind of physical ailments. At that point, you're looking at, hey, this week, you're just going to take it a little bit easier in training. What we're trying to do tactically. You've been here for a while, especially now you're year 2. You're talking to players who have been here with Cano for 2 years now. They know what they're trying to do tactically. So, hey, take a little bit of extra time off the legs, get a little bit of extra recovery time. We'll build it in. Doesn't mean they're not going to be tired, but there's little things that you can do.
We talked to Maxi and Clay kind of between the locker room and the pitch, and Maxi, he'll be on the podcast a little later this week, he said, hey, I love having this many games because you get to skip all of the practice sessions and you go straight to the regen and then you're traveling, right? And Clay was the same way. I was like, I just show up and play. Like I'm just vibes, I'm just here for the vibes. So
sounds exactly like Clay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Maxi also had a really good impression of Clay Holstead. So we may need to get a cameo kind of who can do the best Clay Holstead by the end of the season, either on the pitch or from the fan side of things. But I think there's some truth to that. And Jason, if you ask a player, they're going to say they're going to do what they can. They've got it in the tank. They're going to give it 100%. But at this point, if you're Kano, are you looking to rotate? I mean, we've now seen Amos Shapiro-Thompson rightfully start in 2 home matches ahead of players that we maybe thought were kind of a little higher up the selection table. First outing, Harivo from not getting the start. Now Holstead not getting the start. A big surprise, I thought. Is this going to be more chop and change from a coach that's infamous for the chop and change on the squad?
I think so, but part of what we've been dealing with is a lot of injuries, right? And some new players to the squad, right? Aime hasn't been with the team for 6 months, maybe. So
Aime's been with the team for 6 days.
Yeah. So, but before that, he wasn't, he was inactive. So at that point, it's going to take him some time to get going. From the little that we've seen him, he's been very good. But you can't just throw him right in there. Chico came back from injury. He did play a lot of minutes this week. So he's kind of on the mend. Strikers can be streaky. It's going to take him a while to get back in. We saw Clay got dropped from the starting lineup. But I mean, also he got his head cut open the other day. So I mean, maybe he needs a little bit of recovery time there too. It's tough when everyone's injured, right? There's only so much rotation you can do.
Exactly. Kaylor, before we get into the starting 11 for the squad, overall kind of vibe check on the stadium as you've been watching it from afar. I know, how much the USL show has been talking at length over the last 3 years since we started tuning into you about the importance of these kinds of facilities coming online, what it means as a standard of the league. John Morrissey, of course, wrote that great article about the financial implications of it. Overall, what's been the early impression from the USL show squad?
It's been awesome. I mean, anytime that you can see a stadium open and attendances roll in, it's always exciting, right? Even if it's not the most ideal stadium. We were excited for One Knox, who they are sharing with a baseball stadium, but they opened it up, got over 6,000. It was awesome for One Knox. It was awesome for that community. Same thing goes for Rhode Island here, where you're looking at Rhode Island. They dang near sell out. They didn't completely sell out the first game. They definitely sold out the MLS match. And, we look at those and we're excited for it because we saw what the attendance could be at the old stadium. We saw what the fans were already buying into at the old stadium. Now the fans have a stadium that truly is their own, right? And that's something that we've been super excited about. And the way that Rhode Island kind of debuted things, one thing that our good friend Phil Bakke said, there's nothing better than actually getting the stadium after the team kicks off, because there's the build up into going into it. Like if the team drops and the stadium's with it, it's like, which is the new toy, the team or the stadium? But you get 2 new toy experiences. You get, ooh, yay, new team. Ooh, yay, new stadium, right? You get 2 of those experiences. It's like 2 Christmases back-to-back years. And so it's really exciting for Rhode Island. And the way that they've done everything in the build-up has been class act, right? So I think it's just been more of a culmination of Rhode Island keeps doing things right, and they nailed the stadium front.
Definitely still in that honeymoon phase. Hopefully it lasts for a few more years to come and doesn't immediately go sour into, a relationship that you don't want to be in anymore. I'm not talking from personal experience whatsoever. But let's get into this actual starting 11 and kind of nitpick through some of the squad selections that existed on the day. And we'll start things off with Koke Vegas returning to the net after that Open Cup performance. And, I know that we had talked at length about Jackson Lee's, maybe missteps in the Open Cup. He'll still be the cup keeper, for the foreseeable future through the rest of the Jägermeister run. But we do see the return of that 4-2-3-1, at least formationally, and then kind of morphing again back into the traditional 3-5-2, but really maybe almost more of like a 3-5-1 nowadays. But you did see that back 4 and Aldair Sanchez reprising his role in that left back spot. Frank Nodarse, Grant Stoneman, and Rio Hope Gunn make up the rest of the back 4, with the double pivot this week in Zach Harivo and Amos Shapiro-Thompson. The midfield 3 with the wingers out wide, Noah Fuson starting on the left with Jojea Quizera On the right side again, saw a lot of inverting this time around, a lot of movement between the two players, trying some things on the right and then switching over. Maxi Rodriguez kind of holding down that front attack in the midfield, and then Chico getting his second start after the Open Cup. We were told he was at the right amount of minutes. He played the full set. Not sure he had the most effective game coming back off of his mend. Curious, Jason, we'll start with you. Overall, besides the Amos Shapiro-Thompson nod, anything surprising you about this game day selection?
No, like I just mentioned a few moments ago, with no Clay, he deserves rest, right? Everyone needs to, but as we saw in the game, with no Clay, there was a little bit that missed from there. I feel like he's one of the only players who's willing to have a crack from like that long shot kind of range, and he's kind of good at it in a sense that they're usually pretty close to being on frame. So that there was a lot of opportunities in that first half where it felt like the crowd was wanted to yell just shoot it to the team when they got themselves into some of those like opportunities and just went for a pass instead.
We're going to talk at length about the shooting opportunities and the lack thereof. Kayla, looking at this squad, you've seen how Coach Kano has built this team over the last 18 months or so. First off, it's the first time we've seen the departure from the 3-5-2 since we last talked. Last year, he was religiously, this is how it's going to start, and this is the shape I'm going to maintain. A little bit more change here, still trying to get into the back three line as much as possible, but willing to kind of settle with a little bit deeper of a defense when they need to drop in. Historically, we've usually seen 5 on the back and then 3, but a little bit more comfortable now with a back 4 setting. Overall, any kind of early thoughts is, you've seen the results. This team is not necessarily off to the races just yet, but any surprising kind of note outs in the selection so far?
Not really. I mean, a lot of the stuff we mentioned, or like you guys mentioned, is out of necessity. Guys are hurt. Guys are, not ready to go a full 90 or even 45, right? They're trying to get minutes back under control a little bit. It's like an inning limits for a pitcher with Tommy John, right? You don't want to push them too far too soon. And I don't want to jump ahead in the conversation, but part of what shocked me in this match is not the lineup that they put out, but it's how it was implemented. When out of possession, they were having Maxi and Chico go up top. They were really dropping into kind of a 4-4-2, which a lot of teams do out of possession. A lot of teams love to defend in a 4-4-2. That's completely normal. But what they were really doing was in the buildup, they were missing that guy who was playing the center of the pitch. You would think it would be a Maxi, but Maxi was getting really far north, leaving kind of that zone 14 really open. Shapiro-Thompson and Harivo were playing really deep. They're really good at it. They were really good at rotating possession, but that area right where the D is in the top of the box was left empty a lot, which is, as you mentioned, Clay Holstad. You mentioned the lack of shots. Where does he normally shoot from? Roughly around 35 yards out, right at the top of the D. You were missing that, and while it was out of necessity, I was a bit surprised that they didn't have Maxi Rodriguez drop a little bit deeper and fill in that space, but you also don't want to take him out of the direct front line of attack either. It's a catch-22 if you're Kano.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised by that. I noticed first and foremost, this was the first time this team faced a true kind of center holding midfielder in Fonguk this season. We normally have players that will engage in the high press. Fonguk very much, a player that's happy to sit closer to his own back line. So I think maybe to bypass that and not try to fight through that, because we've seen this team struggle to move the ball vertically this season. They are much more in favor of moving the ball side to side, stretching defenses, and then trying to kind of go up the wings. It's why we have some of the best crossing and an accurate cross stats that exist right now in the league. So I'm not surprised that Maxi had to range a little bit further forward. He seems at times, and Jason, I don't know how you see this, but he seems to either be the kind of player that drops back to support on the defensive side or is a little too far forward in the attack. Not a player that likes to hover centrally in that gap that gets created. We were definitely a team that was kind of split at times, and we saw that a lot with the second balls. I mean, we said that from the press box. There were so many times where, we failed to get a lot of shots to even go at the net, but when we lost possession or there was a deflection of some sort, we didn't have anyone at the top of the box to collect those second balls because we were so concentrated on the top line or out to the wings that we waited for Haribo and AST to have to try to fight doggedly in the middle after Monterey would attempt a counter or whatnot. And Haribo, not really a strong showing in the sense of his physicality. I thought he kind of got pushed around in that game. Curious, did you see the same thing with Rodriguez, Jason?
Yeah, I still think we're in this weird phase with Maxi where we're not 100% sure where to deploy him, on top of the fact that there is a lot of like flux around him that, similar to what we saw last season. We're trying to figure out what best position to deploy him in and like what best tactics suit that. And in this match, we saw him maybe a little bit further forward. In other matches, we've seen where he was dropping deep, like way back, where he was maybe one of the holding midfielders in a 3-5-2. There were at times, like I was saying, just giant empty holes in that midfield, and we were kind of getting run through there at times. I'm still confident that they'll get it figured out at some point. I think we need to get everyone healthy so coach can maybe implement what he wants or at least have the flexibility to kind of tinker a little more instead of building lineups based upon only who's available.
Despite like his scoring and his assisting numbers that he has had and has garnered, especially with his Detroit City days where he was a lot of the attack there, Maxi is not a central attacking midfielder. I think that was when a lot of people, especially Rhode Island people, saw the signing and they saw the assists, they saw the goals. They said, finally, a Cam. That's not Maxi. If you watch the film, he is a central midfielder who gets forward, gets back, but he is a central midfielder at his heart. And he felt like a perfect system to be in that like 5-3-2, where he can kind of sit in the middle, let players run past him, let him spray it out wide, which they still want to do. But in this match, you can't let him sit deeper because Shapiro Thompson and Haribo were both sitting in deep. So you just end up having 5 guys just back there, just hanging out, doing nothing. So you have to push him forward. Again, I think this is a situation where they had to deploy Rodriguez there because there was kind of nowhere else for him to go unless you want to drop a Shapiro Thompson or a Haribo, but who do you play in one of their places? And to let Maxi sit a little bit deeper. It feels like it was something out of necessity, won't be something that happens all year long. But if they are moving away from the 3-man backline, whatever it may be, they're really going to have to think about what they do with Maxi because there's going to be a fan favorite who has to get dropped.
Yeah, and I think the other problem that compounds that too is without 2 strikers in a 2-striker system, we see Maxi, again, he's not supposed to be that attacking midfielder, but he's challenged or tasked for coming up and stepping in. We've tried the Noah experiment. We've seen Quizera at times, but those are 2 players that they thrive at speed, at pace on the wings, and then coming in. Maxi's probably one of the few players that can collect the ball at his feet, turn, and at least take a look at goal or try to do something dangerous. So he's getting pushed further and further forward because we just don't have 2 strikers that are available for the pairing up front. Or at least maybe we think we don't, and maybe we do. We'll talk a little bit about Joe Brito here in a second. Before we move on to the storylines of the game, I do want to mention, though, it was really good to see Mark Ibarra on the bench. I had seen him the week before. I made a scientific calculation based on the boot that he was wearing that, he must be 2 to 3 weeks out. And maybe that was all a facade, making sure the scout report, the trainers that were out there looking for Monterey, he's not going to be ready for the game day. And
they're trying to throw you off.
Yeah. Seeing him dress was an important thing. So hopefully we'll see him back in to this team. I still think Mark Ibarra can play a really critical role. He was our garbage man last year, a lot like how Steven Turnbull, which again, we'll talk about him here, just really playing important roles in the team. And I don't think we've seen a Mark Ibarra-esque performance from any of the people that have slotted into the midfield this year. Maybe Amos Shapiro-Thompson's the closest, but Ibarra's better off the ball. Positionally, he's already getting into the spaces to close down lanes. Amos Shapiro-Thompson just runs you down, takes the ball away from you, and then, moves the ball away. So let's get into the storylines themselves. Let's talk about the two goals here for a second. Obviously, Monterey Bay going up first after a goal in the 17th minute. Jason, this goal didn't feel like it was earned. It felt like, you'd mentioned the joke at the beginning where Rhode Island FC just wasn't ready to play their game that early. 17th minute, a ball comes through, and Rio Hope Gund is looking over his shoulder because he's already lost his man. Grant Stoneman didn't know where anyone was and was surprised that there was a Monterey Bay player in the space. Frank Nadarce doesn't step up to even challenge the ball coming in. And it's just 2 touches and the ball's in the back of the net. And every single Rhode Island FC defender is staring at each other, almost doing the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other, like, whose fault is this? And it just didn't look like it was well coordinated, well communicated. We thought maybe that they were trying to instigate the high block to try to challenge the offsides. Monterey went early several times with offside flags in the first couple of minutes. Maybe they thought they had gotten that again, but you can't play a game in the USL with no VAR. You can't play that high of a line and expect a ref. And some people are saying online that was offsides. It doesn't matter because the goal counted and we are where we are. But you can't play that high of a line and then rely on the ref to get it right every single time.
Sorry, go ahead, Kaylor.
I think he was on, personally.
Yeah, I didn't even bother looking it up because what does it do? Like when you see players put their roots down like that and not move and just get completely caught off guard, like it makes it easier for the ref to not be wrong because it's like, well, look at how disjointed and dismantled you were in the run up of the attack. So like if it was closer and like the player was like they were hounding each other, sure, I could say like, what's your argument? What's the advocacy for it? But Rhode Island FC got caught asleep on this one.
Yeah, with them being this tired, I think that they kind of fell asleep at the wheel there. They got it, like you said, a few offsides there, and I don't know. You really have to play to the whistle at that point. It's just a shame, Credit to Monterey Bay. They did what they needed to do. They scored. They haven't scored a lot this year. They've, haven't found a lot of success in front of the net. A lot of it has been in the back there. And we kind of gave them an opportunity. They took care of it.
I knew ahead of time that this would be a game where the defenses were the ones that were going to have to step up because both of these teams have had pretty solid performances so far in their back lines. Seeing this that early was kind of a scare because it's like, okay, you expected this to be something that got dismantled really much, towards the end of the game, not 17 minutes in. From there, knowing how good Monterey Bay has been on the defensive side of things, is that something that worried you, Jason? Because and again, I'll just go right into it. We have not led a game outside of 3 different instances, 2 in 1 game against Phoenix, and then of course the entire Oakland clean sheet. But that was 40 minutes in when we got our first goal, and then it was 3 goals in consecutive manner. We've now only led for 104 minutes of this regular season so far. We are either failing to find the net or always chasing the game for the most part. Seeing Monterey get that early goal was this just like, okay, here we go again. This is not going to be a fun match to watch.
No, I mean, it didn't bode well, but I had faith that RAFC had a goal in them. I wasn't 100% confident they would get 2, but it didn't look good for more than a draw being kind of the best case scenario in that regards.
And Kayla, you've watched teams this year. I was reading an interesting stat that keepers are now facing a lower total shots on target. When you see a game like this between 2 defensive sides, was this a good showing from both groups? Was a 1-1 kind of the expected result at that kind of demand?
I do. And I think that when we kind of talk about this, about keepers are seeing less shots, that is true. But this is also not just a USL trend. This is a worldwide football trend of shots are just down everywhere, especially the USL has been a total decline. Our friends at This League talked about this a while back, but just in general, shots are going down. However, XG on shots on target, so XCG, if you will, the XCG, which again is the quality of the chance that goes on target, is way up. So, which means teams are electing not to take crap shots and want to take good shots now. And both teams didn't allow good shots all game long. Monterey Bay has been great. I love Nico Gordon. I think he is the truth. He is my young player of the year besides Abakora. I think he's great. But Monterey or Rhode Island played a great defensive game, except for 5 seconds, which
It's the 5 seconds that kill you, though.
it is. And that's not what you want to hear from Rhode Island if you're a Rhode Island supporter at all, because the defense has been suspect all year this year. Let's not beat around the bush. But for 89 minutes and 55 seconds, they were awesome. And that sucks. It sucks that the 5 seconds hurt you.
Yeah, I look at, you talk about the shots, 12 from Rhode Island, 11 of them inside the box. But again, to that quality perspective, only 1 shot on target for Rhode Island. Same thing with a little bit better on the Monterey Bay side, fewer shots at 6, but 4 on target. Inside the box, though, they only had 2. So, Monterey much more comfortable shooting at distance in this one. I think back to what you said a second ago and kind of going through the Chico component of this. A fan was talking to us after the game and saying, hey, like Chico was amazing in 2023, Golden Boot winner. But Chico's profile and his type of player, he's a poacher. He's someone who collects the second ball, who's in the right place at the right time. He has that high-level soccer IQ. And, from 6 yards on, he's very dangerous. I watched Chico in this game struggle where he had to kind of collect the ball in the run of play, build his own attack. He had some really bad touches. He had some really bad looks. And, I wonder, back to that point you just said, Kaylor, about when teams are just rifling shots, good or bad in terms of quality, when there's those deflections, there's those second ball opportunities, it creates an environment for a player of Chico's profile to be able to clean up a lot of that mess. Are we seeing less of that type of striker now in this, I don't even know, I won't call it a new era, but like, are we seeing a different type of profile then? And what's the missing component for Rhode Island FC?
I'm going to, can you tell I've been watching a lot of baseball? I mean, baseball is still my favorite sport. But
yeah, you've already got 4 drop-ins on the night. So yeah,
we're already like, it's fine.
Hashtag not an MLB podcast.
Not an MLB pod. The same way people say don't buy a pitcher from the Rays, just don't do that. Like they're their own special beast. Stop buying strikers from Pittsburgh. Lily Ball makes goal scorers that shouldn't be. Why does it work? We don't know. I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing from Chico right now is the fact that there hasn't been someone that he can make the off the ball movements to be the poacher, right? Whenever he was really working in Pittsburgh, he was seriously, hey, new sport, Carmelo Anthony, like he was all goal, 0 assist, like 23 goals, 0 assist. That's mellow ball. And what he would do though, is he would make runs off the ball, and he would create spaces because teams were terrified of him, as they should be, and they still should be. And so teams would follow through, create space. Somebody would take a shot. It would the keeper would not be able to collect it cleanly or make a deflection, and it would fall right to him. Right now, no one for Rhode Island is making that run. You were seeing that from JJ, but what JJ was doing was scoring his chances. Right, JJ was just playing like a man possessed. If some of those shots were being saved, they would be falling to Chico. That's how it would be working, but nobody is making that run. Is it because he needs a second striker? I don't think so. He didn't need that in Pittsburgh. He needed somebody from that deeper lying area to make a run. That should be Maxey, but it hasn't been doing that. I don't think it's a Dequa issue. I think it's a system issue or a personnel issue around him that's not creating chances for him to be that poacher. Someone who's just like him but plays way deeper, Enzo Martinez. Enzo Martinez is the best poacher I've ever seen in my life. He's just always where the ball falls. Why? Don't know. He's just there. He's never created his own chances. He just makes other people pay for their mistakes. That's Chico to a T. If they want Chico to score, they need somebody else to do something because he can't do it on his own.
Jason, what are your thoughts? You look like you're a puzzled man over there.
No. I agree. I just kind of thinking, how do we maybe manipulate our tactics there to set him up for success? do you put someone like a Joe Brito up there who does take shots and then let Chico kind of clean some of those up? I don't know.
I mean, we'll jump into Joe Brito, but before we do, I did notice, and especially with the whole, comments from Kano about tired legs and like really having to stretch their minutes here, I saw a lot of wasted energy in this game too. We were talking at length during the match about the overlap and like the failure to find the player making the run. So you'd see Aldair, bomb down the left. You'd see Quizera cut in, and the passes wouldn't come. We would slowly walk it towards the front. We would slowly build the attack, but we were missing that kind of, Rhode Island FC likes to go at speed. They like to be in transition, faster play. The crispiness of the passing wasn't there. Ironically, it was the highest passing game they've ever had in the history of the club. I think it was like I got the stats here somewhere. 556 total passes, accurate 400. Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. It went black on my side. But we saw that, at times that they would just pass the ball around. We saw them not want to take shots against this Monterey side. There was a moment where I think it was Amos Shapiro-Thompson. Literally, I don't know if we're still frozen. Let's see if the chat, it says I've crashed.
Oh, see, I thought I was the one that had the broken internet because Xfinity sucks for me lately. So I really thought that was me.
I have no idea.
I can see you now.
Okay. Producer Torrin saying we're good. We're going to keep going. But there was a moment where Amos Shapiro-Thompson had the ball at the top of the box, and you heard the entire stadium collectively like do that deep breathe. They didn't say shoot. Everyone's like, oh, because they all saw him even kind of take the leg back, and then he dropped the foot back down, put it off to the left for a pass, and then we lost possession, 10 seconds later. And everyone collectively was like, what are you doing? Shoot the ball. This team seems afraid to shoot. And I don't know, back to Kaler's point, tactically, if this is something where Kano wants the extra pass, he wants the higher XG chance for conversion, or if this team is just like afraid of what's going to happen next. Make it make sense, Jason, because it doesn't make sense right now.
Pep Guardiola ruined football. Also, XG stats maybe are awful. But bring vibes football back.
But make it make sense. Like, why is this team not shooting? Why are they not taking their chances?
I mean, like Kayla was mentioning earlier, there's the kind of whole thing where you want to see higher like goal scoring chances, right? The zone that Clay Holstad shoots from
is everywhere.
So those are like 0.008 XG shots.
And his conversion rate is 80%.
Yeah. So like you shoot from there, you're more likely to lose the ball if you're not set up to maybe have someone like a Chico to close that down and kind of get that second ball. If you're not trained to do that, you then risk losing the ball, and then you don't have possession, and then you have to kind of go back and get the ball.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I'm gonna let Kaler jump in, but I'm gonna put the slide up too, because that may be the case for Chico. That may be the case for some of these players. Last week we talked about the drop off from 2024 to 2025 for some key players. Noah Fuson way off his marks right now in regular performances. Maxi Rodriguez way off, but I think, as Kaler said, he's more of a CM. Don't expect that role. But something's wrong with this team. So Kaler, go ahead and drop in. But for the people watching along, they're about to see a very damaging stat on this board. So I'll let you jump in though.
I am begging you to go watch 2020-2021 Birmingham Legion FC, where Connor Smith was the assistant coach and by his own merit was essentially a co-head coach, right? He and Stone shared a lot of responsibility. They did the same thing. They refused to shoot within, in anywhere besides inside the box. They wanted to basically get as close as humanly possible to shoot. I don't want to say that this is a trend for Kano, but this has happened in his coaching past. We have seen this from him. And you mentioned the Shapiro-Thompson. I think that that's one of those that Kano is going to pull him aside and be like, shoot you, Nimrod, right? Like, you're wide open, just shoot the ball. But clearly, this is a tactical shift that they've been doing. And Jason, you mentioned it. You shoot from too far back. Everybody else is pushed really far forward, waiting for the pass. You shoot, deflection. It's a counterattack for a team that has been counterattacked a lot. You can see why they're not shooting. So I think it's all just one big, just kind of cycle that's kind of happening right now. That we've seen this in Kano's past, where they have been trying to do this. If you're not within the 6, don't even think about it. And is that a bit of extreme? Yes, but I still think that this could be something to keep an eye on.
Okay, and that's fair. I see Scott also writing that he thinks the AST example is bad, but I disagree, and here's why. Because we see this team commit numbers forward. We'll make the joke. They're Arsenal trying to walk it in, and they still commit the bodies forward. But when they lose the turnover, they're in the same situation as they would be if they take a poor shot that results in the recycling of possession for a goal kick, or it puts their opponent in a good position to try to counter. We saw this in, for example, the Colo Spigs game for the USL Cup final. We've seen these things happen. But when you're not putting shots or putting anything dangerous in, regardless of its frame, like it sets us up for some sort of form of failure. And to your point, Kaylor, Chico right now is struggling. Yet Joe Brito comes in, and this is the graph on the screen. His shots on target per 90 is almost double Chico's. It's better than JJ's, who leads the team right now in actual goals scored. Joe Brito is not afraid to let it rip, and he's seen success with just his one goal, but his shots per 90 on target is helping the team in a much more massive way. I don't understand why we can't get a player like Chico, a player like Noah, to be able to take those shots. Our defense is ignoring the super sub Joe Burrito, and they don't want to take him serious. So it's giving him the opportunity to take these shots. What is different about his game, and how do we emulate that to the other 10 players on the pitch?
Jason?
I think from what we've seen from Joe Brito when he has been successful is that he comes on with energy, right? He comes on against tired legs, and he's a bit more direct. We've seen a lot of this team, especially in the first half. They were very slow in possession, tons of overlapping runs that, went by the wayside because I don't know if the players just didn't see it. They didn't make the pass. They were just very slow to progress the ball up the field. In the second half, towards the end of the game, where things started to kind of click, it felt like there was a bit of a fire under them. They got the goal. They're like, we have the momentum on our side. Let's keep pushing. We've got this. If you could extrapolate that over a whole match, we probably win this game 2-1. It's just we didn't start playing until the second half.
And Kano said that if we had another 10 minutes, he thought that the ref got it wrong on the amount of added time added at the end of the match. He thought that if we had what was the appropriate amount, that there was a second goal in this team. But you play for the 90. You don't depend on that added time. And again, maybe it's the joke that this team didn't show up. They forgot that the match started at 4 and not 4:30. You could tell that they were very much in the hunt, but we can't be relying on that to dictate our own will on these teams. And that's not going to get us the points. That's not going to move us up the table. Sorry, Kaylor, I know I cut you off there. I wanted to add that piece.
No, you're totally fine. One thing that our good friend John Morrissey has been kind of harping on this year is that there has been a real trend of USL teams being a lot more direct, extremely direct. I'm not talking lump ball over top. It's, absorb pressure, one pass, here we go. And you mentioned it. Rhode Island was stringing together passes. They were really doing things. They were side to side, get people to come in, and then they would bomb up the wings and they would create something. But then they realized there was no one to cross the ball into. So they would go back and start it all over, and they would do the whole thing again. Joe Brito was the direct option, where we have seen that counter movement in the USL of being super direct lead to wins. Almost every single one of the top teams in the league right now are very direct teams. And I don't necessarily mean that Joe Brito is showing Rhode Island they need to go direct, because Joe Brito is the super sub enigma of, is he good because he's a super sub, or is he good enough to start? What we are seeing, though, is that he has been a change of style every time he comes on. He is that central attacking midfielder. That's what he was in Union Omaha. That's what he's showing to be. He was filling in that space that I said that was left all alone. That zone 14 was left barren the entire match until Joe Brito came on. He was a change of style, a breath of fresh air, and I mean, let's not act like his goal was just this, well immaculated thing. It was an absolute golazo. I mean, that was disgusting, but it was gross, but he was willing to do it. Maybe because he's a super sub, right?
He hates the term. We've talked to him at length. He doesn't. He believes in his heart he's a starter.
I'm sure he does, but when you are coming off the bench, what is he going to do? Not start you? Cool, man. I haven't been starting all week. I haven't started all year. What are you going to do? Bench me? Okay. I still got my shot off. And I think that gives him a level of freedom to try it. Meanwhile, the guys that you mentioned that on the rate basis, which rate basis is hard because he's only played about 120 minutes, right? His numbers are going to be a little bit more skewed, but those guys, they have something to lose. They have their starting job to lose. Joe Brito has nothing to lose. And maybe that's why he's able to do that. Maybe those guys need to be told, hey, Chico needs to be told. Maybe like Maxi needs to be told, if you shoot from 25 yards away, I will not bench you. And maybe that's all it takes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. And again, I think we need to ask Kano if we continue to see this. Is there some unspoken lack of permission, which is interesting too, because he's often been told so far this season, he's been quoted as saying, I tell my players to play free. And it doesn't feel like it if they feel like they need to walk it into the 6-yard box before they'll let something rip. Fun fact also about Joe Brito, when we talked to him in the press conference, he said that goal felt like the same when he scored against Sporting Kansas City in the Open Cup with Union Omaha. He said it was
a very similar goal.
It was the same takedown. It had the same vibe because of what it meant to the stadium and what it meant to him in front of his family. So yeah, he was very much I think that's probably going to be one of the most memorable goals that he's ever scored in his career outside of that Open Cup match. So full credit to him on bringing the team back into it. And here's the silver lining before we move on to this preview. Rhode Island clawed one back. We haven't seen that from this team this season. We knew they had that in them, but typically if the game gets ahead of them, the game's over for them, right? They're either ahead of it or they're behind. We haven't seen them fight tooth and nail to get back into a match. And so I will still absolutely be okay with a point. I think there still needs to be some things solved on the front, but getting that tenacity in this team, despite the amount of minutes on their legs, I think that is one of the most important silver linings to take away from this. Before we move on, Mabika, when do we want him starting? This week against Birmingham, or do we think he's 2 to 3 more games out before we get him in the starting 11?
I think he still needs a few more games in terms of fitness. I really like so far what I've seen from him. I mean, and we talked already about this, but every time I see him, he just absolutely towers over everybody. I almost feel like I wonder if he has an advantage of a tactical view because he can just.
I think he can cross the entire pitch in 5 steps. He just floats.
When he just made that run towards the end of the match, I was just hoping he was just gonna glide past. It's like when you play FIFA and you just take the guy from the back. I'm gonna go with my center back.
I was screaming, Vincent Company, just do it, let it rip. But Kaylor, a player like Mabika, he's not the Morris Dugan replacement, but he is someone that's going to help us on this back line. Is he the real deal so far in your eyes?
I need to see more, just to be completely brutally honest with you. I'm not an MLS guy, so I don't really know. I don't know his MLS film like that. I haven't seen enough of him at the USL level to really give you a true idea. He's freaking huge. So if you just want a guy to be large, that's awesome. Especially we've talked about this. I've talked about this in y'all's chat a few times about set piece issues. Having one of the skyscrapers in the middle of it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. We saw what's that guy from Phoenix? He's really good on set pieces.
They have 2 of them. Marboy is awesome, and I did a whole set piece show about him. Oh my god, what was his name?
It's not Nobello, right?
What's that?
It's not Noble, is it?
I think so.
No, it is
Yeah.
Noble.
Yeah.
Noble.
He's a massive dude too. He just
Yeah,
whenever he's in the box, he just towers over
His
everybody.
parents signed him up for the
6'6".
football, and it was the wrong football when they signed him up.
Noble is a 6'6" midfielder, and that just seems not allowed. Don't get me on a tangent because I love Phoenix's set pieces. Them in Detroit City are just chef kiss perfection, and I love them.
And this coming from the guy who covers the Birmingham Legion. It must be difficult to spread your love across the league and then still have a favorite back home.
It's so funny because we talked about this on the USL show when we did our live show. I don't cheer as much as I used to for when we score. I'm happy, but now I personally know human beings on the other team, and I get a little sad sometimes. And so, like, don't get me wrong. Like when we win matches, I'm in a better mood. Like I'm definitely a happier human when we win, but I definitely don't celebrate like I used to, and it's bizarre.
That's the professional pundit in you. But let's get into this Eastern Conference preview of these two teams. Rhode Island FC heading down to Magic City to take on Birmingham Legion this Wednesday. Weirdly enough, these teams sit on identical records for the most part right now, currently on 1-3-3 records, each with 6 points in their regular season and a -3 goal differential to boot. The only difference here, Birmingham slightly edging out RIFC, taking the 9th place position because of the number of goals scored, but then also they've had a little bit more scored on them. Rhode Island FC loves to sit in 10th place right now. They're returning to the road after these 3 games at Centerville Bank Stadium. They've already seen 3 losses in the regular season on the road from that big trip away. The team's starting to dip performance-wise when you compare the numbers to 2024. We didn't have, we were about 2 points stronger at this point into the table. But like I said, 10th place is just the bed that we like to make until that midsummer. Meanwhile, Birmingham, they sit on a record of 2 losses and 2 draws, struggling to find 3 points on the road themselves. Their record at home, complete even keel, 1-1-1, as all things are intended to be. So Protective Stadium, maybe Kaylor kind of turning things around, maybe making it a little bit more of a home, like defensive place to play. I know you had mentioned at length last year that players sometimes struggle to find that 12th man, that home identity, because of just the uniqueness of their stadium. Guys, do these standings, speak for themselves? Is this exactly where both of our teams deserve to be right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to argue with it. Like, when I look at the table, am I surprised to see Loudoun up there still? Yeah, but
good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
They're a really good team. They're really good.
You just have to make them watch their own kits.
Really good player,
and they are off to the races. You got to get that grit in them, that personal like responsibility, and like they're playing for their lives right now, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So let's get into the head-to-head record. Ironically, this Rhode Island team swept last year. Sorry, Kaylor, hate to bring it to you, but
they lost a lot of games. It's nothing personal.
Birmingham Legion, only one of 2 teams in the Eastern Conference that Rhode Island FC successfully swept last year, with Birmingham getting the distinguished honor alongside the Miami FC. They first bested the Alabama side back on July 17th, winning 3-1 in their first showing between these 2 teams. Noah Fuson getting a first-minute kind of goal there for himself, an early, I should say, goal for himself. And then Zach Harivo got the Zach attack, his first brace in the second half of his career in the championship. We had talked, it was relatively recent after his kind of acquisition from Tampa Bay. We had talked at length that, don't expect this player to be the kind of guy that's going to score goals. He's much more known for his defensive qualities, a CB and a CDM at heart. And then he goes and scores a brace against one of his former clubs. The second leg of the fixture, when Birmingham returned to Byrne Stadium on August 31st, a 2-0 clean sheet with goals from then Stephen Turnbull, pour one out, and JJ Williams, as he was finally starting to find his form. Kaylor, I don't want to bring up the past, but Birmingham didn't really have answers against this team last year. What's different for this squad? I mean, there's a lot different with Birmingham this year. What's the lowdown, and what do fans that maybe are watching from afar need to know about this Birmingham side?
The attack is way different. Like if you look at the front line, it's just completely different. The one goal that was scored by Birmingham was Prosper Kasim, who's now down in Union Omaha, no longer with the squad. You look at up top, someone who makes Rhode Island fans just a little bit sad, which is Ronaldo Damas. The Danny Trejo, not that one, enters the side now. You end up having a former League Two player, Sebastian Tregarthen, joins the squad. There's a whole lot of players that are kind of entered in now. The one thing that's kind of consistent is the midfield, which is Kobe Hernandez Foster and Martinez. But Tyler Pasher, now central midfielder, despite being a right winger last year. So that's really the biggest change there. The rest of it's fairly consistent from what they've seen. It's really that front line that has made a big change. Oh, yeah, and there's a new coach. Mark Briggs has joined the side as of about a week or two ago now, his first match being against Tampa Bay.
And for the uninitiated to the league, or maybe kind of looking from afar, or just recently joining the podcast after seeing the first few games at home, Mark Briggs is a household name when it comes to USL success. Most recently out of the Sacramento Republic side, he is a coach among coaches here in this USL Championship, and any team is lucky to get the services of him. Really quickly, I know it's early days, but how has Briggs been integrating into this side so far?
The biggest change that you've really seen out of him early doors has been a change of pressing identity. Mostly the roster has stayed the same. The lineup has stayed the same, kind of. Like the actual lineup has not changed from Son. Well, not Son, but like Eric Avila being the interim into Briggs. Really, that what's changed is the pressing assignments. So I'm going to use technical terms and then explain it. Under zone, what they were trying to do was press into zones 13 and 15, which are the wider areas. Think about where normally your wing backs sit. They were pressing the wing backs in hopes of either getting the ball to go out of bounds or to go back into the goalkeeper, where they were going to try to pinch the goalkeeper, create a chance. With this team that we saw in the very first game was very much, if they are in their own half, press the ever-living crap out of them, right? When you're dealing with a team as speedy as this Birmingham front line is, with the Ronaldo Damas, with the Danny Trejo, not that one, and a Sebastian Tregarthen, they are really fast. They can really press you, and that's what they're trying to take advantage of. Meanwhile, so that's been the biggest kind of change, that teams would just end up playing to their center backs and playing through the middle because they just knew that if we pass it to our fullbacks, they're going to get pressed. Now, nowhere safe. So we're seeing a lot more over the top kind of motions, forcing teams to play it over to us and thus into our back line, who is very comfortable with the ball at their feet, or into Matt Van Oekel himself.
So obviously the results yet not kind of bearing fruit. There's been a lot of talk about this team early on from just the acquisitions. A lot of people were saying this could be a super team here in the Eastern side. It's been a little bit of a slow start, as I'm sure a lot of these players need to learn first the tactics of Son, now under what Briggs's identity for this group is going to be. How has that build up, how has that integration been overall for these players coming together for the first time here in this 2025 campaign?
The first game was definitely nice. You saw a lot more continuity, and a lot of that is Danny Trejo is healthy. He got injured in the first game. He got a concussion, was out for a little bit. You see Ronaldo Damas is starting to look more like Ronaldo Damas. Sebastian Tregarthen is someone who has been a nice breath of fresh air, someone that I thought was going to be a super sub, or even just be a depth piece to play later on. I saw when he played for Asheville City last year, he kind of played left back for Asheville City last year. Sometimes he would come on as a winger, but I saw him as a left back when Legion 2 played them. I didn't know that he had what he has in his locker. He is a good dribbler and can go through space and really can deliver one of those second six crosses that a lot of teams love, those diagonal crosses back to the second six. And it's been great. I think that if they get more time, which they had a nice 10-day layoff between matches. They have a lot of time to work with each other. We might see more wrinkles, but early doors, it looks a lot more gelled together than it did under Son.
And we'll talk at length about that here in just a minute, getting into kind of what we can expect from the available selection of players coming down for this midweek game, kind of giving the availability report here. Isaac Anking inching closer to getting back into the squad we mentioned last week. He should be available at least to be a participant in games sometime around that Memorial Day approach. So I know that he may be itching to at least dress for his Puerto Rican international match and see if he can kind of show up for that in a big way. Hugo Bacharach now at about 5 weeks, maybe less, in terms of his time to deploy into the squad. Danny Rivera probably about 3 weeks before we could see him hit the pitch. Obviously could be faster. Again, I referenced the Mark Ibarra kind of stage and where that was at. And then JJ Williams, we heard in the press conference he may be closer to 4 weeks before returning. Again, until I hear from a medical person or until coach kind of gets a little bit more serious instead of, dancing around the question, my guess is go for the maximum of one of these calf strains. And again, July at the earliest that we could see him. But if we get him back in 4 weeks, that would be fantastic. Obviously, the lack of him being available has hurt this squad. Krifa Yount off the availability report. He should be available for this game day selection. It'll be interesting to see what the coach's selections will be on game day, as he now has an abundance of
my uninformed medical opinion was correct.
I mean, you played a TV doctor once on a TV episode, right? That's how it goes.
Yeah, I was there.
And Kaylor, what about AJ Patterson? What's the story on him?
He's been out since the beginning of the season. During preseason, got hurt in one of the first training sessions. So he looks like he's still going to be out. He has been training recently. What that actually means, we don't know. There was kind of backroom conversation of he might be done for this season. They've already kind of signed his replacement everywhere, but he could just become available later as a super sub. At this point, he is a depth piece that isn't going to play, so not really much of a factor for Rhode Island.
And then getting into the starting 11, guaranteed to be wrong. Jason, take it away.
Yeah, so as always, we're going to have Koke Vegas in net. Rio Hope Gund playing that kind of right back role there. He's been doing well there himself. We're thinking Hervo, Stoneman, and Sanchez kind of back line here with holding midfielders of Amos Shapiro Thompson and Clay Holstad, with Quizera, Rodriguez, Fuson, and then Brito potentially up top there.
My bad. I wrote Hervo, but I meant Nadarce in the show notes, so that would be confusing.
They were guaranteed to be wrong, right? I mean,
I had Hervo on the brain, but it was Nadarce in the heart.
And then, by maybe Zach Hervo on the bench, Chico, Aime Mabika, Taimu Okiyoshi, Mark Ibarra, Cole Dewhurst, and Jackson Lee. I wouldn't be surprised if coach isn't going to start Brito and have Chico up top. But with the success we've seen from Brito, I think he'll get some minutes there. And then we know that Chico has come back recently from an injury. With 5 games in 14 days, I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of rotation here.
Yeah. The only reason
he's got to be getting tired there.
The only reason I have Brito in the front spot is not to pay, reward victory for scoring the goal and equalizing in that last match. It's more of a minutes managed. This is a player that was out for 3 weeks, came back, played 40 minutes, played 25 minutes, played 60 minutes, and then played the full set. Like, he may need a little bit of rotation, knowing that there's 2 games this week. Which profile he's better at, whether it's Birmingham or Tampa Bay, hard to see just yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brito, because we've seen Brito already substitute into that role somewhere in the top line. So could see more of that, but it could just as well be Chico and that starting rotation there. Kaylor, let's get to how we think Birmingham's going to set up.
Kind of to be seen, but there's been a lot of just sudden rotation, a lot of changes, but it does appear to obviously going to be Matt Van Oekel in the back. You're going to have your center back pairing of Rami Zamuda, Fanuel Kavita. On the left wing back option, you're going to have a Dawson McCartney. And on the right back option is going to be a Jake Roof, more than likely, although Turnbull did find himself coming in at the very end of the match. So maybe that is a little bit of foreshadowing, but I'm just going to play what we've been doing all year long. It's going to show up on your FOTMob notifications that this is going to be a 4-1-4-1, but it really plays like a 4-3-3, where Kobe Hernandez-Foster is going to be playing more of the base of that midfield. Enzo Martinez kind of playing at the base. He plays more true central midfield, with Tyler Pasher being someone who is going to be really that kind of cam, but from a wider area, if that makes sense. So that's going to be your Tyler Pasher as that right center mid option. And then at the left wing option is going to be Danny Trejo. On the right wing option is going to be Seba Tregarthen. And then up top, Ronaldo Damas. Who's available on the bench? That's a great question. We never know. We don't even fill out a full 18 most of the time. So like take your guess. If I had to put a guess out there, probably Samuel Hudson, Temi Areku, possibly. A Dorado could end up on the bench, but Roman Torres, someone else. Like, it's really figure it out. If it's not, you're definitely going to have a Stephen Turnbull on the bench. If he's not starting, if he is starting, Jake Roof's on the bench.
And then, you brought up this tactical style. If you want to kind of break down how you see this 4-3-3 work in its system under Briggs.
Yeah, so what you end up getting is, whether it's McCartney or Moses Mensah on the left back side, they really like to have him work with Trejo, where Trejo is going to be cutting inside. He's going to be that right-footed player who's going to dribble inside, who can lay the ball off to that left back option, whether it be a Moses Mensah or a Dawson McCartney. Your defensive or your midfield triangle is going to be Enzo, Pasher, Kobe Hernandez-Foster, which they can rotate this triangle however they need. If they need to go to a 4-2-3-1, Enzo, Kobe Hernandez-Foster is going to be that pivot. If they need to have Enzo and Pasher go up, they can do that. Kobe can go up. He's honestly the best finisher of the ball we probably have on the team. He is a set piece specialist, but he did come up through the U.S. men's national team as a center back, so a lot of defensive prowess about him. Jake Roof will not go as far north as Dawson McCartney, but he's still adequate in doing so. No matter what, Ronaldo Damas is going to be someone who's going to drop in a little bit deeper, allow the ball to get to him, and he's going to hold up the play and play it to a Seba, to a Danny Trejo, or to a Tyler Pasher, who's going to make the run pass, who maybe can feed him back the ball whenever need be. So that's kind of how you're going to see this go.
And, talking around the players, you've mentioned several kind of when you were doing the early preview of Birmingham, but who are the players that most likely are going to capture the eye of Rhode Island FC fans watching from afar?
Definitely a Rami Zamuda is who I want to start off with. He's the 16-year-old who's getting time with the U.S. men's under 17, under 19. It's one of the unders that's like not the Olympics. So he's going to be someone who's really catching eyes. He was a left back last year. This year, center back. He's been really holding his own, really showing out there. You're obviously going to look at someone like Ronaldo Damas, who has caught eyes, of course. Tyler Pasher, he's made that move from right wing over to that central midfield. He has been someone that has been a real revolution for the team. He has been able to break down midfields and defenses in ways. So if he's going to be someone who's going to take on backlines pretty directly out of that midfield position, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And then Seba Tregarthen. He is someone who has taken over for Pasher in that right wing spot. He's taken over for a club legend in a Prosper Kasim. He's someone who he's pretty quick. He's not fast, but he has acceleration, if that makes sense. He gets to his top speed instantly. It's not a burner, but he can blow past you. And he's really good at getting to the end line, cutting it back. He's going to be someone who's young. He's going to be someone who is going to be really interesting for Legion fans to keep an eye on, because he was just playing with Asheville City last year. How is he going to handle playing a full season against grown men? He's had good games, but he's also just coming back from injury. When is the curb going to hit him? And I think that's going to be something that you should keep your eye on.
In terms of the 16-year-old Ramiz, you guys had a player, if I remember correctly, last year, a young player that you sold on to an MLS side. How is the academy system? Obviously, it's paying dividends to have yet another young potential prospect player here. How's that overall transition been between the two systems?
Yeah, Matthew Corcoran, who's now with Nashville SC, he also got U.S. men's national team minutes for a little bit. He came through Dallas Academy, came over to Legion, became a pro. Same thing for Rami Zamuda, was with Kansas City, wasn't getting enough serious time. They brought him over. Here he is. You have Finn Callaway, who's probably going to be a sub, depending on when he gets to go to the University of Kentucky. We'll find out. But he is someone who's come through the academy system. There's been a lot of youth players coming through. We have a lot of young guys in this team. Someone like Kobe Hernandez Foster has played over 1,000 minutes in the Eliteserien in the top flight of Norway, and he played over 1,000 minutes there. He's only like 22, 23 years old. They have a lot of youth players in this team, surrounded by Matt Van Oekel, who's like 38 years old. So like, the youth with the experience, you take it as it goes. But they definitely are big into buy the good talent young, give them a year to figure it out again in training, and then hey, you're ready, show what you got, make us some money.
I always, just looking from appearances alone, believe that Enzo Martinez is the oldest one, because that beard, you don't grow a beard like that and not be at the age of 42 years old. So he
was probably
impressed.
born with that, I imagine.
I saw that he was clean shaven when he played in MLS, and it is gross to look at. He just does not look right at all.
There's a reason some of us wear beards. It's just, we don't need to show you what's underneath these carapaces here. So let's get into the storylines that I think were at least the most interesting. Kind of talking first, Kaylor, the terrible trio here in that front line. It's no surprise that we collectively here at Rhode Island FC hate Ronaldo Damas because of the things he's done to us. He's now the highest scoring attacker in the USL Championship to find the back of the net against Rhode Island FC, and he only did it in 2 matches, both of them disastrous for the Amber and Blue last season. Talked at length with Coach and Joe Brito about what do you do about a player like Damas, and they said you just got to lock him down and stop him. And clearly that's not an easy thing to do, just given his talent and his ability. First winning the championship last year, and kind of, I know he's off to a start with you guys. Not sure if he's unlocked his full potential yet. How do you control this terrible trio? I mean, and then you've got other players, right? It's not just Damas. How does Rhode Island FC need to stack up against these front three?
I think that the way to stop Damas is stopping Trejo and Seba Tregarthen. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if no one can give him the ball, the man can't score. Right? That's been kind of the issue with him this year, is that when he isn't getting service, he isn't scoring. He's done a very good job of getting that service, and all it takes is, like you guys saw, all it takes is 5 seconds for someone to pick out a pass, and he's lethal. Right? We've seen this so many times for Damas, that all he needs is a sliver of space. But if no one can get him the ball, he's just not going to do anything. So I think the way to stopping Damas is, obviously you want to shut him down, lock him down, don't let him turn you and all that stuff. But if you shut down, especially Danny Trejo, especially Tyler Pasher, maybe Seba Tregarthen, like, I know that's 3 people you have to shut down, but also, these are guys who are going to be coming out from winged areas. They're going to be guys who are going to be coming from deep in the midfield. You can compact the box a little bit. If you're playing with that 4-man back line with 2 defensive midfielders, that's something that you can do. Not easy, but you can. So I think that's the way to shut down Damas.
Worried about the speed on our back line for this game, especially if Krifa Yao reinserts himself. Not necessarily known for being speedy on that back 3.
This is a fast team with one of the fastest players in the league on the bench in Tabor Teka Preston. The fastest guy on the team is not starting, so that's definitely going to be a factor.
Absolutely. Jason, we talked about when would fans get worried last week. We said we're not going to even really bring that up until the end of July, But then after watching this draw, we kind of reflected, we thought Monterey Bay would be a pushover early on. We thought San Antonio would because of where these teams were in the last year's, campaign. Now it's some of the best teams in the Western Conference. The question I want to ask this week to you, instead of when do we panic, is when does this schedule get easier for us? When are we getting those must-win games schedule-wise where fans can breathe and go, yeah, we're going to string 9 points along in, 10, 15 days?
That's the neat part. It doesn't. I would say when we look at Birmingham here, maybe if we catch them where they're still trying to figure out Briggs ball, if you catch a team when they're still in that transition trying to learn, maybe we could kind of sneak something here. Looking ahead to the following weekend, something is not right in Tampa. So that might, although that was not a great game for us last year. That
was the highest goal scoring match we've ever gone into.
The 4-1 loss, but that might be something we can look forward to. I would say the Miami FC, but I don't know. Maybe they're kind of looking like they are ahead of us in the table. So
I did see the stretch real fast, Kayla. The stretch I was going to highlight initially for the joke was the Miami FC. And this is, again, a couple weeks ago before they kind of got their act together. The Miami FC, then away to Louisville, because that's our favorite place to play.
Look,
and then North Carolina FC. But Miami's doing great. And I don't know if we've got the confidence in us for the Louisville run that we've had in the past. So, yeah, I have no idea where there's going to be easy games. Kayla, go ahead.
And it's something that we have been on a lot, that there are 0 bad teams in the USL this year.
Hartford is right there for the picking. I don't know.
Now, listen, I'm not here to say that Hartford's a good team. I know my crowd. But I want you to ask yourself, compare this year's Hartford team to last year's the Miami team, and tell me, how many goals does this Hartford team beat that Miami team by? 4? 5?
But that's not fair because they don't have Hernan Rivero,
who scores a hat trick.
But no, they don't have the keeper that they had. So progressively, I think they're on the wrong trajectory. They're going to be a worse team. I
completely agree with you. There are worst teams in the USL. There are teams that are bad relatively to the rest of the league. However, Hartford is the worst team in the USL. I was going to say that for sure. USL Championship. Texoma
is Lexington not worse than them?
Lexington gets a pass for coming up back into the championship, so they get that first year. It's okay.
Lexington is essentially an expansion team this year. I'm just saying though, when I think about how long I've been covering this league, and when we had MLS 2 teams, and how horrifically bad those teams are, this year's Hartford team finishes in a playoff spot over those MLS teams. That's how far it's come. I'm just saying that there is no easy game anymore in the championship. There's just simply not. If I am looking at a stretch for Rhode Island, it's this one. Birmingham, they have a new coach. They're trying to figure it out. Who knows what's going to work? This is going to be an experimental time for Briggs. Yes, he gets to see it in training, but training doesn't get you wins like it does. But you don't get 3 points for going to training. And you're looking at Tampa, who is falling apart. Tampa Bay is in more consideration for me of being worse than Hartford, to be honest, just the way things are going. There's a lot of things, and that's a whole different podcast, but this is the time. And then you look at a Pittsburgh team who are looking ahead to the US Open Cup. Maybe while you guys are on your stretch of not being able to breathe and your legs are falling off, Pittsburgh is right there with you. So this may be your, let's call it 7 points in 3 matches stretch that I don't want to say lock it in, but this is your best chance.
So this is where we start to get really depresso espressoed if after this series of games we don't pull it out. Got it. Okay.
No, because unfortunately for you guys, we can just point as a wider audience to, hey, remember what happened last year? And you'll say, well, yeah, but, and you say, we'll say no, because you guys were not very good until you were unstoppable.
I don't remember what you're talking about. We were perfect the entire season, Caleb. It's perfect. It was a perfect season. I think we won every single game.
That's what I
Records were made.
remember.
Yeah.
Every match that I watched in person, you guys won.
Oh, so it was you. Okay. Good to know. We're going to have you definitely now come out before you get to the USL show preview for that Hearts of Pine game. I was talking to John at Westchester, and we're going to have to make you land in Providence. Come watch the game that Saturday at Centerville Bank Stadium before you head, 3 hours north to go get your Portland on. We're going to have to make you stop now. If you're the good luck charm, it's absolutely, we're going to hold you hostage in the state of Rhode Island.
There's
Perfect.
an Amtrak. So, I mean,
Oh, I'll put you on an Amtrak if that means you stopping at Centerville Bank Stadium. I'll put you on a train. Easy. Let's get back into it. Kayla, next question. And I think this one's probably the most important one because last year, I felt that you were very critical of your Birmingham side. You were fair about it as well, but Birmingham definitely had a lack of, let's say, keeping up with the competitiveness of the evolution of the championship. You had called for transparency as the league had grown about what Birmingham's plans were for the future. You'd question just the optics of it, the stadium at large, game day experiences, etc. And there was talk early on about at that time Tommy Sohn maybe departing the club, that for all of his good that he had done, maybe it was time to see a parting of ways. And he continued on for the beginning of this season. He got to go out and get the players that arguably were, I think Birmingham made some of the best transactions in this offseason. Definitely reinforced from Heaps and the front office at the Legion that there was an intent to really truly compete here in 2025. Can't get the show started. He's out after just a handful of games. The experiment is over. The career, the accolades that he had earned now gone. I guess I want to ask Briggs, we know the type of coach he is, but are these the type of players that he can benefit from? Or is this Legion side just so stacked in talent that like anybody could bring out the potential and Briggs is just going to take it over the top?
I mean, not anybody could bring out the potential because a guy got fired. Like, I mean, and I hate to sound snarky with that answer, but like, I do think that this team has a lot of talent. But this is also a team that is built to score. The defense is good, but far from elite, far from what the best this league has to offer. And if you aren't scoring 2 to 3 goals a match with this lineup, you're not going to win. Tommy Sohn was and always has been a very cautious manager, never willing to put foot on throat, really. And I think that's one thing that Briggs does do. He was ruthless at Sacramento. And I say that because he also reverted and didn't do that with Tampa Bay. He brought on Turnbull, and as Turnbull was coming on, he was motioning to everybody, 5. We're going 5 at the back. And they concede within like 5 minutes of that. And I'm not saying that's Turnbull's fault. I'm saying they went defensive and they did not stick to Briggs's principle, which is foot on throat, make them suffer. And they paid for it. And I think that's just going to have to be a learning moment for Briggs. He has the team with the attacking talent to stay on the front foot. And, in the end, even though this Tampa Bay team wasn't very good, you can also say, hey, you know what? A point's a point at Al Lang. We'll take that. And I think that Briggs can get the best out of this team. I think that we've seen him go to a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-1-4-1 when he was at Sacramento Republic. And it was arguably when they were playing at their best last year. So I think that they have some of the talent to do it.
Jason, next questions to you. We know JJ now 4 to 8 weeks before we see him. I look back at this team across 2024, and one of the biggest trends, and we talked to JJ at not JJ Williams, but JJ the fan after the match, and he had a really good point about saying that when you look back at the season last year, and now to a certain extent this one as well, there was a very rare the chance where we would see Chico and Williams playing together, right? Williams was injured for the early part of the season. Chico went through his own set of knocks and injuries, as well as some streaky performances. By the playoff run, they were not playing next to each other. I'm curious, for a 3-5-2 system, Kano's intended play style, having two people kind of at the tip of the spear there, we don't now have the depth, not having Mark Doyle on retainer, as he's now gone on to light USL 1 on fire with 1 knocks. Is this an overstep from Kano? Is there too much faith placed in the wrong type of players? I know he wants the versatility. I know he wants the most out of like different roles and responsibilities out of this group. But we've heard a lot from fans like, oh, we should have had a third striker. We should have had a third striker. Is that now not just because of the injuries, but because of the lack of playing time in general between Williams and Chico? Is it an oversight on Kano's part that we don't have that third option? And if so, do we need to start thinking about things differently in the summer transfer window, maybe getting an MLS loanee to come and join this squad? Or do we have the players that we need here on this team? We just haven't figured it out yet.
I think to a certain extent, we already have the players that we need here on the squad, and that we're still in a bit of a transition phase in the sense that a lot of the players from last year did carry over, right? But some big pieces kind of have changed, right? You talk about Mr. Consistent for us, our right wing back, Steven Turnbull is gone. And so now we're playing a back four, right? And like kind of shifting into a 3 still in possession, but we've been trying to struggle to figure out who plays that. And it kind of seems now that is Rio Hope Gund, right? He has so far been very consistent, played very well. And I think that he's maybe potentially locked that down. We talked earlier about Maxi Rodriguez. How does he fit into that?
But wait, hold on. Let me interrupt you because I hear where you're going with this. But to get back to the question at hand, are you insinuating then that Kano has to just change his tactics and his formation because of the players available? Because I asked you, why don't we have a third striker? But you're now talking the back line in the midfield. Connect the dots for me here.
I think that there's other parts in the team that are kind of not working, that are allowing our strikers to be at their best. I think that, like last year we had Kevin Ordoy. We never ever saw him like actually play right. And
Jason Carey, Kevin Ordoy apologist for life.
And so like, could we have a youth person like that? Sure. But unless we get to July or something and everyone is just still injured, I think you just have to kind of trust that they're going to get it figured out.
So
we saw what
need
they
a
could do
third
last
striker.
year. I don't think we necessarily need another striker.
Okay. Kayla, I'm going to ask you to jump in. Do you agree or disagree with Jason's take?
I see. The entire time I was just daydreaming Joe Brito as a false 9. Like having Brito come in, play a false 9, play a little bit deeper, doing that hold up play that you guys said Chico and who he has been struggling with. Let him drop in a little bit deeper, get the ball, hold it up, play into Fuson, or someone of that sort. Like I understand that Fuson is the assist guy, but he can finish a ball, right? So allow those players, Quizera, Fuson, to make those inverted runs and have Brito play them. Maybe that's not a bad idea. I think that you mentioned the versatility that Kano went after. Same thing that happened in Birmingham whenever we had, obviously, Kano and Son. They wanted players that played literally everywhere. Anybody could plug in anywhere, and it was great. They just have to kind of change the tactic. I think that having a Brito up top, play that false 9, could allow Chico to get a little bit more rest on the legs and allow a little bit more rotation. It also allows a little bit different of a look. So I kind of agree that you guys don't need a third striker, but if you want to continue to play the way that Kano clearly wants to play, then yeah, you kind of need one, right? If he is not willing to adapt to what he has, if he wants to continue, square peg round hole, then yes, you need one. But if he's willing to adapt, which he has been willing to do that, then no, I think you don't have to.
It'll be interesting. I mean, he made acquisitions that nobody saw coming. I don't think we ever had anticipated there'd be multiple MLS loanees coming down from different systems last season. So it's clear he's got a good rapport, a good relationship, a good system out there. I'm waiting for the Ipswich Town Academy player as they're now moving down to the championship. I'm waiting for that pipeline to get built. So, spoiler alert for a future interview drop that I have with Brett. It's loaded. It just hasn't dropped yet, but we'll be dropping that one soon. I want to conclude in this kind of part of the storyline. Kaylor, I look at Steven Turnbull, big loss for us on the Rhode Island FC side this season, a bit of a surprise. We got a chance to talk to him. Matthew Carvajal, he also talked to him. He's one of our radio presences here in Rhode Island. And it was a sudden surprise. It was a departure. Turnbull wasn't expecting it. It seemed like it was some transaction between two clubs that saw needs on both sides. Son and Kano, obviously good friends. We've definitely been feeling the loss of Turnbull here this season. We thought we maybe had the answer because we saw some potential, future opportunities with the Darcy out on that right side. We thought maybe we'd be okay. But with the injuries and now just the absence, it has felt tremendously here. Since joining with Birmingham, he's now played barely 100 minutes. Curious, can you give us an update on his overall time integrating with the Legion? And also, why is he lacking for minutes? Is it something because he's stuck between two coaching styles? Is it a set of tactics that he doesn't exemplify on the pitch for Briggs? Like, why is he not getting more minutes?
Very first match of the season, he did not start. When asked about it, Kano, he's not here anymore. Son said he will be. Son said it was a quote unquote coach's decision. So clearly they saw something in Jake Roof that they thought that they could exploit tactically. Jake Roof looked amazing in preseason, so kind of hard to fault that one. After that, Turnbull had a little bit of a knock. He kind of picked up a little bit of an injury. He got another injury in the Little Rock Rangers match. Clearly the reason why we lost. There's no other reason, obviously. So we kind of saw him missing there, and it feels like it was just one of those situations that he didn't start the first match because another guy frankly earned the spot. He gets hurt when he was getting his chance, and now he's kind of working his way back. I don't think it's he's caught between two managers, really. I think it was someone else won the competition, and then he unfortunately got hurt. Now, I think he is working his way back. It seems like he is getting there. So, and he clearly got minutes against Tampa Bay. So maybe that means that Turnbull is going to be on his way back in. So we'll see. He is the only, Legion only paid for two players this year. The guys like Damas and Trejo were technically on freeze. Delgado and Turnbull are the only ones who they paid money for. Delgado's played all the cup matches. Turnbull hasn't really played. So that's definitely a storyline that you need to be following.
Jason, we're 0 for 2 in alumni scoring predictions, both with Messer and Connor McGlynn. Does Turnbull get the bike here against us if he gets minutes on the pitch?
Or does he assist Ronaldo de Moose?
The guy that he pushed down in the box to allow. Oh,
pay him back.
That's the absolute most disgusting thing you've said all night. All right. Well, then I don't want to move further in that dialogue. So, Kaylor, final question. With all of this acquisition, with all of this concentrated effort for Birmingham to restore its glory in the USL Championship this season, it feels like one of the biggest, again, off-season acquisition transfer trackers I've seen. Is there a lot of pressure riding on Birmingham now to make the most of this? Like, is a home playoff berth, considered success and everything else a failure based on how much they've invested?
Personally, no. I personally had them outside of the top 4 coming into this season. I thought there were holes in the midfield that didn't get addressed, and now they kind of been addressed from within. Personally, I don't think so. I think that the blank or bust, it's a failure, is in the Jägermeister Cup. Legion needs to take their hashtag shot of glory, hashtag ad, and they need to win the division. It's a competitive division. You have a One Knox team, you have an FC Tulsa team, you have an Indy team. They are all really, really good teams. And so you need to come out of it. And I think that if you can win the division that you're in, you show that the investment was worth it alone, because that also gets you a home match, I think. Well, no, they have the random draws anyway. Doesn't matter. If they don't make it through the group stage and they don't make home playoffs, then yes, I'll count that as a failure. But I think making the playoffs as not the 8th seed is a successful year, and making it out of the group stage is a super successful year at the Jägermeister. But I know a lot of Legion fans don't feel the same way. They think that it is home playoff or bust. They do think that it's Jägermeister Cup or bust, but I don't personally feel that way.
And then kind of getting into the optics of where fans think this game is going to go. 34% believe that the Legion are going to get a win at home. 52% believe that Rhode Island FC will carry the day, when we have not really shown that in our away performances this season. So love the RI Forever Faithful. 14% of them, much more intelligent, they see a draw coming in the future of these two organizations, kind of tipping my hand on where I believe this is going to go. So, guys, I want to round this out and ask, what do these two teams need to do to get 3 points against each other? Jason, we'll start with you. We'll do the positive, negative, positive sandwich here. Let's kick things off, Jason.
The defense needs to be better in the sense that, like Kaylor said, they defended for 89 minutes and 55 seconds. So those 5 seconds, if they give that opportunity up to players like Trejo or Damus, they're going to get punished. So they're going to need to kind of potentially, if they want to get a win here, they're going to need to play a complete game, because I think even playing a complete game, those are players who are still capable of punishing you. If you give up those mistakes, it's going to be even worse. On top of that, like we talked about earlier, they need to shoot the ball. And if that means they need to create good opportunities and get themselves inside the box, because that's the only place they can shoot, so be it. But we've seen that this team, if they don't get at least 10 to 15 kind of shots, they're not going to score any goals. We're very rarely are we ever hyper lethal in terms of being clinical. We need double-digit shots to get a goal or two.
Kaylor, what say you?
I think there's 2 prongs for Legion to come out with a win. I think that they need to score their chances in the first 15. They're going to create chances in the first 15. They will. They are, frankly, faster than the Rhode Island backline. They're going to create counter-attacking opportunities. They're going to press the ever-living crap out of them. Someone's going to make a mistake. Can you punish the mistake? Versus Tampa Bay, they didn't. They rued the day. So it ends up being a draw when it probably should have been 3 points, because they could not take their chances. Second part of this is take advantage of the deficiencies of Rhode Island set pieces. Legion have shown that they have very intelligent set piece design. It used to be Kano who made the incredible set piece design. He is a offensive set piece master. If you just sit down with him for 15 minutes, your mind's going to be blown. But they have shown that they have deficiencies in set piece defense that I think are taught. I think that they are systematic, and Legion have shown some short corner set routines that can take advantage of the shortcomings of Rhode Island's set piece defense. If you can force mistakes defensively on set pieces from Rhode Island and take advantage of the first 15 minutes, I think Legion walk away with a fairly comfortable win. But those are 2 pretty light moments. Can you take advantage of 15 minutes and a couple of set pieces? You're realistically looking at 20 minutes of game time that I think that you can win. That's hard.
Yeah, I've kind of got a little bit more of a flip on that. One, I agree that this defense is going to need to be paying close attention to that front line of Birmingham, not only at speed, but we've seen, just because of the difference in speed between these two groups, we've seen the back line in Rhode Island get burned when they're already at speed running past. And this is not going to be a situation where I anticipate Birmingham just sitting at the top of the line waiting for the pass. They may just come at them at speed, and if they're not prepared, they're going to get caught flat-footed. But the other part to it too is that I didn't understand this in these last 2 games that we've seen, both the Open Cup now and this Monterey Bay match, where we keep talking about tired legs, but yet we come alive for the final 60 minutes of the match. We're trying to fight to actually get those results. I'd rather see the script get flipped. I'd rather see us come out even stronger, get what we have done well so far this season in getting the first goal, get back to leading the game. We can do that. A lot of different opportunities unlock. It allows us to kind of then slow down if we need to and put in the rotational players. But if we end up chasing this game, if Birmingham goes up early, I just don't think we've got the gas in the tank to do that. So we have to go out, punch Birmingham in the nose, and get that early goal, and then hold on for dear life and just try to make it through game number 4 of this 5-game, 14-day streak. Outside of that, it's containing Damas. If they want to food poison him at the hotel the night before, I'm totally fine with that. Give him the old Michael Jordan game 4 trick. I'm absolutely fine with making sure he's not available on the day.
You know what happens after that food poisoning, right?
Oh, but I mean, like, I don't think Damas has got it in him to play through food poisoning. I think he's just going to take the night off. Yeah,
I wouldn't.
If it's a championship game, Kaylor, then yeah, it would be he'd show up in a big way and he'd go, "Let me show you what I can do." But for a midweek game on a Wednesday, I think Damas would take the night off and go, "Hey guys, get this one for me. I'm going to go yak in the toilet for a little while." So I think we're good. So yeah, find where Damas lives and food poison him. It's the only way.
Diabolical. Where's this message, by the way?
That's diabolical.
To all my employers out there, I'm not a part of that project.
So many times it's like you never want to wish ill on someone, but you just want to find a way for them to not actually make it. I want him to get stuck in traffic. How is Magic City's traffic patterns? Can he get stuck in traffic and miss the game? That would be great.
280 is really bad. So like
that's what I want. I want him to get a flat tire on the 280 and then just miss the game entirely. How about that?
Realistically, I'm really surprised that a player has not missed a match because of traffic on 280, because it could happen. It's a realistic possibility.
All right, let's wrap things up here. Score predictions guaranteed to be wrong. Kaylor, as the guest, you get to start things off.
If you're someone who watches the USL show, you know that I refuse to pick draws. It's a part of my whole shtick. Because of that, I'm going to stick to my guns.
Rhode Island win.
If I had to lean away, I do think I say Rhode Island.
The sweep continues. Okay.
However, if you're reading between the lines of why I preemptively said I don't pick draws, I do think I would lean possibly Rhode Island. I think that I don't like doing they're coming home, they want to stick it to the man or whatever, because that whole thing is kind of whatever. But there is a lot of players returning home. There is Clay Holstad is literally returning home. There's a lot of people. Ugarte was around, obviously Kano. There's Zach. I think there's a lot of players who the competitive side of them is just going to come up with things to be motivated by. And I think when you have both of your coaches and 2 influential players who are going to be extra motivated to play at a former team or back at home, I think that is enough to create a spark for that first 30 minutes that we talked about.
I can see JJ traveling as well, just with his crutches in the stands, screaming at everyone. So I could see that as well. Easy peasy. Jason, what do you got?
I'm gonna lean to a Rhode Island win as well. I do think that we get scored on, though. I think there's just too much firepower there from Birmingham. So they're like a 2-1.
Okay. I've got 2-2. Draws will be continued to be guessed upon until winning improves. So, and with Damas now just knows how to score against us, and I already predicted a Steven Turnbull bike, so that's 2 goals right there. So it's gonna be a 2-2 draw. Hopefully Rhode Island gets the comeback of the draw, so they feel like they won. But until a win is actually seen in front of my eyes, I am team Draw Kings again. They have returned to full regalia and they wear the crown once more. Just quick watch info for those that are going to be there or not be in Birmingham, but watching the game here in Rhode Island. The game will be this week on Nessun and Golazo. So this is one of the Golazo games. So make sure that you plan accordingly on that. And then, of course, you can listen along with your play-by-play caller with 790 the score on your smart speaker. So feel free to do that as well. And yeah, Jason, great show. How anything you want to kind of get things out before we hand it over to Kaylor?
No, it's always great to have other USL content creators on to share the stage with, especially the one and only Kaylor Hodges. So, another great show.
It's the royal it's the
Yeah.
Kaylor Hodges, right? Not the Miami FC, it's the Kaylor Hodges. And I totally forgot the game time on this one, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's a late one, it's midweek, so plenty of time to get home, get your favorite snacks, get your favorite drinks, and watch this game from your favorite place in Rhode Island. We'll be at I won't be at the Guild, but you might be at the Guild. I don't know if you're going to make it for that one. Are you going to the Guild?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I have 100 dogs I need to babysit.
You do need to babysit my dog.
I'll
this week.
figure
That's
something
right.
out.
Yeah. But let's get on to Kaylor. Kaylor, thank you so much for joining us. As always, where can fans catch you and all of the critical work that you do here for the league and for your team?
Immediate future, you mentioned him earlier. I am going to be joining Matthew Carvalho tomorrow. So if you want to listen on that, he has a fun interview before me, and then I will be on. So definitely tune in. The USL show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a blast. There's people that are much more intelligent than me that almost make me sound smart from time to time. And then Hammering Down, I post there a good bit. I've definitely slowed down a little bit on the posting on that front, just because there's so many places that I'm trying to kind of keep my attention to around the USL. But definitely the USL show at Kaylor Hodges if you want to follow me or block me, whichever one you choose.
It better be a follow. No one should be blocking one of the most informed people here in the league. And listen, you're the foil to John Morrissey. Without darkness, we can't have light. And without light, we can't have darkness. I won't tell you which one I think you are, but you know in your heart what I feel about you.
Appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a blast. I always have such a good time.
You are definitely always a good friend of the pod. And if you ever want to jump in, I see you often in the chat. Just let us know. We'll get you the StreamYard link and we'll get you right on it. And you could just wax poetic for 5 minutes and then, bounce out if you've got the time. But little production, just show notes for everyone that's following along. The reason we're recording this and going live tonight on Sunday, I will be out of pocket. So I'm taking a vacation. Podcasting is a busy, tireless, and thankless, effort. So I'm taking a break. But that doesn't mean that you're away from us. We will have a Maxi Rodriguez interview drop on Tuesday. And then Jason is going to be running the first solo show in club history in podcast history. But he will be interviewing and talking with Ryan Davis, the play-by-play broadcaster for the Tampa Bay Rowdies, giving you your preview. So I am excited. I love Ryan Davis. Excited.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Please make 5 Trinidad and Tobago U.S. men's national team jokes for us on my behalf, since I won't be there. That's all I ask.
Never forget.
Before we leave, can I tell y'all something? That's been plaguing me.
You mean us, or also our 60 people that are listening along live in the chat?
Both. I have a problem with Stephen Turnbull. Okay. My problem is I keep calling him Spencer Turnbull, like the 6th man in the rotation from the Philadelphia Phillies. I have yet to record a single episode of Hammering Down where I have not called him Spencer Turnbull. And it's a really bad issue to the point that if I turn my camera around, I have a note on my wall that says Steven. It's really bad.
I love that.
Maybe start by just calling him Step Hen instead. That could be the way.
Yeah, just slowly get myself out of it. It's been really bad. I had to catch myself so many times to be like, Steven, Turnbull. Here we go. Tonight was a battle for me. When we got to the Turnbull section, I was having to really think about it.
Just call him by his nickname. The best part about our jobs, Kaylor, I don't know how you feel about this, but I always love hearing the player nicknames for each other. So Turney, just call him Turney. That was one of his nicknames. Not Bully. He didn't go by Bully, but he did go by Turney. So just rotate it out and you're one of the cool kids once again.
He's like, don't call me that. You don't know me.
But did Matt send you? You think I would forget? But Kayla, hey, listen, I really appreciate it, and I also want to thank you for allowing us to have one of our longest podcasts in the history of the podcast. So I wouldn't want it any other way. When John comes on, he's 90 minutes out, and he's like, "Can we speed this up? I've got other analytics to go do." So I appreciate that you're a man of the people, giving them what they want.
Yeah, John's like a professional, and well, here I am. This
we definitely have to find a way, honestly, though, to get you up here and, as a stop. Providence, by the way, one of the best airports to fly into. Just gonna say it. So we got to figure out a way to get you and the rest of the USL show guys. Make an appearance. We'll get you set up for Centerville Bank Stadium. Do some early recording, and then shoot you on up to the Leicester Stadium at Fitzpatrick. Yeah, so I'm throwing shade at Heartland or at Heartland. Gosh, I can't.
Wow,
talk anymore.
Heartland.
In the
Whoa.
Heartland, guys. It's Sunday night. I'm tired. I don't normally do a podcast right after a game. I'm out. I'm out of gas. It's done. Call it.
We're past the 145 mark. You just can't do it anymore.
Jason, read the
down.
crawl and get us out of here.
All right. Just to reinforce it, please make sure to check out Kaler over at the USL show if you are not already doing so, and all of their incredible coverage of the USL, biggest league in the world. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage, including RAFC, and that's at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RAFC Podcast. We have an Instagram at Raising Anchor, and then we got a website, www.raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchor's up.
Anchors up. Let's go hammer them down.